Okay, aloha everybody. I would like to start today's talk story session by introducing you to Ike Kaiaulu. For those of you who don't know, Ike Kaiaulu is our community engagement programs, formerly our service learning program at Windward Community College. And as an alternative to digging in the dirt and being in a fish pond, during COVID, we have this series that it's in its fourth time in our series. And this semester we've been focusing on, as it says, nurturing connective spaces. So it's really, really important to create that pilina and keep ourselves connected, especially during COVID and even before COVID, because we all know that pilina creates community. So it's really great that we can continue this series and meet people from our community and bring them into our world in higher education and into other communities. So one of the big questions is, how can we nurture each other? So if you keep that in mind when we're talking today, that kind of is where we would like to be kind of thinking about as we go through today. So I am Noi Tupo, by the way. I am the Ike Kaiaulu program director. So let's go ahead and I want to thank all of you who have joined us today. Hopefully you were brought in by this lovely, beautiful flyer that kind of explains a little bit about what we'll be talking about today. This is our community partner that we would like to focus in on today. Logan Narikawa. He is a board member of KAHEA. And we'll go into some questions after I turn it over to Logan, but I want to welcome Logan, you today. Logan and I met at the state capitol, and just, you know, Logan's so easy to talk to. I thought he'd be perfect to come and kind of explain what KAHEA is, because KAHEA is not something that everybody knows. We might have seen it on a water bottle. I think that's the first place I saw it, was a sticker on a water bottle. Wow. So I think that I'm going to turn it over to Logan, and he can kind of tell you a little bit about KAHEA and what they're doing in the community.
Sure. Aloha, everybody. Nice to meet you. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves right after I introduce myself. So I look forward to hearing what you folks are into and who you are. A little bit about myself and KAHEA. So I joined the board about almost 4 years ago now. And when I joined, we were in the middle of a contested case about Mauna Kea, and specifically around the building of the proposed 30-meter telescope. It was something that I had been following. This was shortly after what we think of as kind of the first direct action that occurred in 2015, where folks blocked the road as the construction equipment was trying to make its way up the access road to the construction site. And basically what happened is none of the permits were done properly, and nobody really checked up on it. But we have a group that we're connected to on Hawaii Island mostly, who had cared for the Mauna for a very long time and followed very closely like the whole process of, you know, this construction, this proposed construction project, and kind of sounded the alarm and basically was ignored. And many of them participated in that stand, the direct action stand that really paused things like long enough for the courts to kind of catch up to what the TMT hadn't done, the corporation hadn't done. Really basic, like a environmental survey hadn't been done. And so it was easily like kind of remedied by pausing the project and sending the whole thing back to like the kind of beginning stages of what you should do. And that's sort of been KAHEA's expertise. So when I entered into the organization, I learned very quickly that a lot of this stuff is really kind of unglamorous, wound up in bureaucratic processes, and like all of the kind of tedium that exists to alienate everyday people from like these projects and these processes that directly affect our lives. And so really important, but really hard to stay connected to and to follow and to understand. And so what I really appreciated about KAHEA before I joined was that it tried to make these processes more transparent and kind of digestible for an everyday audience. Like, we don't have time to pour over thousands of pages of legal documents or administrative documents. And so the people in the community who know best often know when things are happening, as they escalate through like different levels of kind of warning until it gets to the kind of red light, like everybody should be paying attention to it and like direct action is needed. And so when our networks like at KAHEA work well, like it never gets to that point, it's because we've stopped something like and like kind of paused projects or pause things like before they get to the point where people need to put their life on the line. So the way that I explain KAHEA, like kind of most simply, is it exists at the kind of convergence of environmental justice and kind of Hawaiian cultural knowledge and resources. So whenever those two worlds come together, usually is when we like can draw on our networks and expertise best and kind of help whatever's going on. So Mauna Kea is like, I think just the easiest and most recent example of the kind of work that we do. KAHEA has existed for almost 20 years now and has kind of been involved in other things that you may or may not have heard of. Two of the other most recent kind of initiatives that we've been involved in. One was at the so-called Purple Spot in Waianae. If you've ever been on the bus tour led by the concerned elders of Waianae, there's three aunties that basically take folks on a literal tour bus, like a school bus, and they'll take you through the Vahipana of Waianae, and they'll tell stories about the birth of Maui at the same time that they tell stories about like rampant environmental justice on the west side and the way that it's been used illegally and also, let's put it in scare quotes, like legally as a dumping site for industrial waste. And often it's looked at as a place for kind of Honolulu's trash to be sent to, its industrial projects to be proposed. So this Purple Spot was a place that had been traditionally used for agriculture, that the owners of this parcel of land wanted to rezone as industrial. And because of the effort of these three aunties mostly, and then the community that they kind of activated, we were able to stop the rezoning process and to keep it agricultural. And the kind of latest episode in this story is that Ma'o recently took over the lease of this parcel of land, and they're looking to sort of expand their operations to another site. So there's that. And then the other thing that probably is the biggest project that we were in on before the kind of efforts around Mauna Kea was the creation and expansion of the Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument. So the designation of it as a monument and then its expansion under Obama was something that we followed along. And there's of course like the kind of cultural component, its significance as kupuna islands for Hawaii, and then also just like from the conservation perspective, it's kind of understood that one of the most effective ways to combat climate change is to designate areas like kind of as conservation so that people can't take, you can't obviously develop, and they're left as intact as possible. And one of the things that we tried really hard to do was to insist on a kind of Hawaiian worldview of conservation, which allows for people to exist in like a sustainable kind of ecosystem, whereas the predominant kind of Western idea of conservation is for people to not be there and to leave it untouched so that nature can regenerate on its own. And we advocated for like the inclusion of people in the management and conservation process, because that's traditionally how Hawaiians existed in relationship to Aina, like in balance, and that it's possible. And it doesn't just mean excluding people, it means including people in like a thoughtful and planned way. So if that gives you a sense of the kind of work that we've done and that we continue to do, and then myself, I'm in grad school at Manoa, and as somebody who's not Hawaiian but grew up here, my project kind of centers around figuring out ways to be in good relationship with Kanaka, like to kind of ground my own thinking in a Hawaiian perspective, and to try really hard, first not to, you know, to continue the cycle of colonization and land grabbing and stealing and the exploitation of land at the hands of people not from here, with a worldview that doesn't align with, you know, the one that was created over millennia by Kanaka, who learned from the land. So trying to figure that out, and then that's sort of my place on the board, is to find ways to include non-Hawaiians when it's appropriate, like into this larger movement, like to create a more sustainable future. So that's me. And I would like to know about the people on our call. So if you're willing and able, if you could introduce yourself, say your name, and what I would like you to do is to think about sharing one thing that you see as falling in that nexus of kind of Hawaiian cultural knowledge and environmental justice, or it could just be one or the other. If there's something that you see going on, or that you're connected to, or that you're paying close attention to, just briefly describe what it is. It's especially interesting when we find things that most of us aren't paying attention to, but you're, you know, closely on the ground, like kind of working to protect or keep track of. So that would be something that I would like you to share. But feel free, you know, to not, if you're not doing those types of things, but just basically what's your name and where you're from.
I can go first. Aloha, my name is Sarah Sir. I'm the head librarian here at Windward Community College. And I'm basically here just to kind of become more active as a Native Hawaiian. You know, I just tend to kind of stay in my own silo, whether it's in the library or raising my 5-year-old son, or just kind of taking care of my mom. Sorry, I feel like I'm going black and white here. So I'm just here to kind of, again, try and be more proactive and connect with others and with those at my institution here at Windward. So just here to learn more. I have had the opportunity to go to the Mauna with Windward Community College, but you know, then COVID happened, right? And so just the world just is totally different now. But I'm just very happy to be here and to meet you and everybody else here on this call. So mahalo.
Anyone else?
My name is Lahela. I'm just now actually learning about this stuff, and it's like real interesting and stuff that I never known. And how I just did a work on the 3 ladies I just read in class. Like how I never even knew about that, and that's just so sick and sad how stuff is happening, and we're not even I'm not even educated to even help and do nothing. That's why, like, Logan, right on, like, you know what I mean? You doing stuff to help us, you know, like, that's it. Thank you.
Darlie, do you want to go first? I mean, next?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
Darlie Molasui. I'm retired from the military. I was a dental hygienist for 37 years.
Wow.
And then decided to go back to school and major in Hawaiian studies. So everything is kind of new to me, but I've learned quite a bit, especially from this crew over here. The course that I took, I learned a lot from her. Thank you so much for opening up my eyes and understanding. As far as what's happening, I noticed that they call it progress, but it just destroys the land when you look at it. With that stupid trap that they're trying to make, and then with the Mauna Kea, they're just destroying everything. And it's really sad because I remember it when it was clean and people could go in there and enjoy it. And now it's like all of these signs and all these picketing. And, I mean, it shouldn't be like that. I wish that we could probably solve these problems a lot more peacefully rather than going through all of this friction that people are having right now. And as I learn more, you know, I'd like to try to help. Now that I'm retired, I have more time. Whereas before, I was working, taking care of my family, and my kids are all married and all on their own. So it's like just me and my husband, which is kind of good.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I can go next. Aloha, my name is Vera Zambonelli, and actually I met Logan was Tuesday, like 2 days ago, but I've known about KAHEA overall. So when I saw that this was the talk story about, I really jumped on just to kind of get to know more and more. What it's bringing me here is because actually, so I run a nonprofit organization called Hawaii Women in Filmmaking, and we offer filmmaking programs for young women. And this seems like centuries ago, but it was just this past summer. We offer one of our program on environmental justice, and it was really well attended. And so I'm here to kind of like, you know, we do it once and we want to do it again. And so it's also how to do even better than we already did. It's interesting, pilina is the word. So actually the organizations that I work with for that one was Sierra Club, because of my own personal relationship with the outreach educator over there. But it was clear that we want to kind of like, you know, also I'm not Hawaiian. I lived here for over almost 15 years now. So it's also, how do you navigate this space in a way that it's respectful, right? So, and meaningful. And so yeah, so it's like, how do we actually can collaborate and make sure that, yeah, there was a lot of, you know, I resonate with Lahela. I mean, I'm familiar with Mao and some of the issues, but it was very, educational for the youth to know about all the things that are happening here, and we linked it a lot with environmental racism as well. So it was environmental justice, environmental racism, and the power of film to actually change the narrative and document what's going on, but also to envision how it should be, right? Because that's the power that artists and creatives have. You know, it's not just depict reality, but also provide us with how it should be, with an interpretation of how it should be, and we want it to be. So yeah, I'm just here to weave relationship and build relationship and get to know each other more and more.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else want to jump in there?
Hi, I'm Angelique, and I'm in your class, and I've taken your other Hawaiian Studies class. And I'm just, you know, on here and learning and listening. I've been in Hawaii 12 years, and half of that I was military. And so I loved it here, and I got out and I stayed here, and all my friends from mainland, they were like, when you coming back? When you come back home? I'm like, home where? This is my home now. You know, both my sons were born here, and so this, you know, this is their home too. And just living here and being here, and also going to UH off and on since like the community colleges since 2013. It's just given me an opportunity to learn more about the island and Hawaiian people and the different things that have been going on, like more recently, you know, with the Mauna Kea. And, you know, I just want to be sensitive to that and learning more information. And I noticed, I don't know if the signs are still there now, but like when you go on the east side and you drive around, there used to be signs that say like, keep the country country. And I don't know where you could petition for that or write something for that, but I'm all for that. I don't think that we should be building condos and everything on every part of the island or every space that you see fit. I mean, it just takes away of the beauty of the island. I mean, just in the short 12 years I've been here, you know, I've seen how things change, like those big condos, it went up in front of Ward, like you can't even tell there's a movie theater there. There's just a lot of buildings and things blocking views. And even with talking to my boyfriend about these things, these condos that go up, it's not for the local people. It's not even for the Hawaiian people. They can't even afford it. These are people buying, you know, in different places, you know, Japan or whatever, the mainland. And it just doesn't seem like those things are here for the local people. And so it's kind of made me sad. So it's like, well, how can I get involved, or even just learning more information so that I am not a part of those things that are tearing down the local community and the beauty of the island and things like that. So that's just where I am with it, and how I feel about, you know, the community. And my son recently, he watched this video, oh my goodness, I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically about the different coral reefs. And so he's really got me back thinking about the coral reefs, and they go around to the different Polynesian islands and as well as here in Hawaii. And he's like, Mom, can you post this on your page? Can you post this on your page? And I did. And I'm just trying to be more cognizant about that. Just keeping the water clean, the coral. I told my son, you know, we don't have to be in a group. We can just go pick up trash, go pick up things, you know, and just protecting the Aina. This is my home. I've been here. This is my kid's home. And he's really concerned about it. Whales and sharks and everything. And I love that. So that's what I try to do to help here.
Thank you so much, Angelique. That's awesome to hear about your son getting involved. Anyone else?
Aloha kako o mokiki kapana ko ino hana hoi hoi e kipa I kia Hawaii. I was just kind of looking for my tribe, I guess. We have to live in this modern world while we can manage the gifts of our ancestors, yeah? And we have to make choices and decisions about what we bring with us and, you know, what we learn to part with. And so I think that these discussions are critical for us to navigate 21st century paradigms. And as we obviously move closer and closer to post-colonial constructs in the political, social, and economic situations we're living through. So thank you again. I really, something that resonated that you said earlier is, you know, the kuleana and the mahele, they say that the land comes with people on it, right? People come with the land. So you cannot like covet and want to like sell it or believe that it's some sort of wasteland that you have to overcome and beat into, you know, submission. So it's a kind of sovereignty and freedom and from slavery that we have to do for, you know, Mother Earth, right? Earth justice. And that I would love for our narratives to become greater, our bubbles to become more inclusive, so that we're talking about local style, right? And we talk about the group dynamic that we were all raised in these islands, and it's not the same. And our fate is all in one place. So I like everything you said. Thank you.
Mahalo, Moke. Hi, Bonnie. We just are going around and kind of sharing who we are and if there were any environmental Hawaiian issues that you kind of have a concern about, or just want to introduce yourself. And we'll get to you, Kalai, and Cindy too. And yeah, Cindy.
I guess one of my concerns in my neighborhood is the stairway to heaven and the haiku stairs, and what, you know, bringing that alive is going to mean for the land, and how are we going to take care of the land when we invite people there.
That's a good one. Yeah. And this is Bonnie, by the way.
Hi, I'm Bonnie. I work in the marketing department at Windward Community College.
Thank you, Bonnie. Kalai?
Aloha kako, my name is Kalai. I'm here besides my boss wanting me to be here, but I'm here just to learn what more you have to offer, and also work on the case where kids nowadays don't really like to go outside and learn about the Aina, because school's all online now, so they're all on the computer. learning about math, science, other things besides knowing what they should about the land, and depending on technology a lot is like, I guess you could say, like kind of killing us, like not really wanting to go outside, wanting to learn anything. So we mostly learn through like TV shows, like what's it called, survival, like kind of shows on TV. Is what that's what we do now at home. So like we have an idea like of where we can work on, you know, moving forward besides just doing school through a computer.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that is something that we need to be concerned about, not touching the environment for our young people. I'm having the same problem with my children. Thank you, Kalai. Cindy.
Hi, nice to see you. I'm Cindy Teixeira. I am also a librarian here at WCC. Wasn't expecting to see my boss on here, but hi. And and Logan, like you, as a non-Hawaiian who has grown up in Hawaii, and my children are all Native Hawaiian, it's always been important to me to be able to connect with the culture, the rights of the environment. Moke, Sarah, Noy, you guys are all my generation, Bonnie. When you're growing up here, when we were in the early 80s, let's say, there was so much disconnect. And I love that my children are growing up in a generation of leaders who are so connected and willing to take these steps that just were lacking in my generation when we were younger, you know? So I'm really proud of the younger generation and excited, you know? So thank you so much for talking to us today.
I want to just make a comment about that. I think that's really awesome, like what you just said, Cindy, because like my son, who has since moved to the mainland, gone to college, and is working on the mainland, is giving to and getting his company to understand what's happening up at Kua'ola, and giving to that organization to perpetuate the malama of the land up there. It's pretty cool. So it's like it's far reaching. It's not just here. It's like when they go away, they still keep those connections.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that what's a good point about this COVID time is I think people are actually finding ways to connect in ways they never thought before. A lot of people are realizing that they can connect without actually being in Hawaii. So that's wonderful to hear about your son, Bonnie. I think I got everybody. Does everybody introduce themselves? One thing that I wanted to mention that Logan mentioned is the fact that there is this desire to connect and not necessarily be Native Hawaiian. And I think that within our classrooms, we don't have just Native Hawaiians in our classrooms. And so when we teach about Hawaiian culture and environmental issues, it's important to open up that space. And I applaud Logan for bringing up that space and talking about that space, because there are many people who grew up here that, or even like my half brother, he's not Hawaiian, but is probably more Hawaiian than a lot of Hawaiians in what he does in his everyday life. Or my husband, who's Tongan Samoan, German Chinese, who has now made this place his home. How do we interact on issues that are important to us as Native Hawaiians? So I think that's really, really important. And that's the first thing. The second thing is KAHEA is, to me, it's kind of ironic that KAHEA is called KAHEA because you guys make the KAHEA to, and the KAHEA is so subtle that many people don't know what KAHEA is doing. And so the word KAHEA means to call, right? To call out. And so how fabulous that you guys are doing what you're doing, because you're right. Not all of us know how to speak law, know how to speak protest, know how to speak Hawaiian, know how to speak all of these different hats. But yet KAHEA is stepping in and helping those issues. So I think that those are kind of the two things I've taken away from all of what all of you have said, as well as Logan. So
can I say something? Yeah.
No.
No. I want to.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
That I don't necessarily want to center like the non-Hawaiian experience, but I want to offer our organization maybe as more of a test case and a model of like of what it looks like to wrestle with that question. And then something that I'm noticing too is, you know, the question of what you're kind of keeping track of in your communities, and a lot of you folks are saying that you're sort of new to paying attention or to being aware that there are kind of issues to pay attention to. And I think kind of thinking through our organization and along with us might help. I don't necessarily see it as a problem. Like, you know, we come to these things in the time that we do, and when they're right and when we're ready and when we want to. So there's nothing wrong about feeling like you're a newcomer at all, I don't think. And especially like I hate to be in the position where I feel like, you know, as a non-Kanaka, that I enter into spaces where Kanaka feel apologetic for the fact that like it might look like Logan's, you know, contributing more to the movement or something as a non-Hawaiian, or that, you know, you somehow feel inadequate because of that. Like, again, like you come to this in the time that you do it, and it's not for me especially to say like this is the amount that you should be contributing for movement, or, you know, your responsibility is greater than mine, so you should feel somehow like, you know, that you're not living up to some kind of so anyway, like that. Please, I don't mean for that to be what's happening here. So one of the reasons why I joined KAHEA was because of one of my teachers. So it sounds like a lot of you are showing up today because of your teacher, and that was John Osorio. If any of you have ever been in class with him or even just heard him speak, it's hard not to feel like you want to follow him wherever he does.
Yes.
So he, you know, he's been on the board for a long time. He's been involved in a bunch of other things. And one of the things that he's really good at is creating space where a lot of different people can come together and can find consensus and overlapping kind of interests, while it's still clear that we're being led, you know, by a Hawaiian who is deeply grounded in the history of Hawaii and like kind of probably beyond the kingdom, but from the kingdom on especially, and can tell us how the law and how administrative processes have really alienated Hawaiians from participation in their own society and kind of political like reality. So it's always clear who we're being led by. It's always clear what the values of our organization are, and what guides the decisions that we make when we come up with hard ones, like what we have to return to. And sometimes that's even without him being there, you know, like we still know what it is that we do. And at the moment, we're kind of half-half. We have non-Hawaiians and Hawaiians on the board. And I think it's always clear that that is the priority, who, you know, regardless of our individual identities. It's good to have a strong leader, you know, who is Hawaiian. So that's never in doubt, like where the kind of last court of appeals lies, if it ever comes to that. And then also just in kind of working out our different perspectives, I think of it as a responsibility of non-Hawaiians to bring up, you know, like I'll often say like as a not a Hawaiian, you know, so that it's clear that that is the perspective that you're coming from, and you're not pretending to know from a different like kind of point of view, or you're not pretending to speak on behalf of Kanaka, while it's still like thoroughly understood that we're working towards the same goal, that we're united in our values. We know, like, you know, what it is that we're all fighting for in Hawaii. And it's very rare that we disagree with each other, but that's because we got to like kind of create ourselves, right? Like we got to choose who we work with, and more or less get to decide like who gets what responsibilities or what roles. So it sort of naturally has happened. I know in other organizations, like you often don't have that luxury of getting to choose who you work with, and so it's harder to work out, I think, sometimes what kuleana looks like for Hawaiians and non-Hawaiians who are in the same organization. So if you have those values to draw from, I know Hawaii, like the university often has those somewhere. So the whole like Hawaiian place of learning thing can be a document, or there's just so many other things that are out there that you have to decide to be like kind of what holds you together and what drives you forward. So that's how we worked it out. I think it's something that other organizations could use. I'm not saying it's perfect. And also like that, yeah, that our situation is exactly like yours. And then, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I just wanted to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
And ask, well, the question is, how can we as a community, well, a comment and a question. First one is, how can we as a community, or perhaps this community that's kind of represented here, how can we help KAHEA? And then something that one of my mentors told me was, get yourself on a board. Be the voice that
Yeah.
speaks. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I also wanted to bring up, you know, the board members, and thank you for mentioning John Osorio, who's everybody's mentor, I feel like, and the fact that he's connected to KAHEA. But
Right.
yeah, those two things.
Yeah.
What can we do?
I think thinking back to when I first got involved, and this is way before even being asked to join the board of KAHEA, like what are the first steps that you take and how hard it is, and, you know, feeling like you don't know enough, or that it's really like, you know, you're really afraid to jump into a space that you have no familiarity with and where the stakes feel so high. So I mean, I think I asked the question, what are you paying attention to? Because I think that's the place for all of us to start. Like, where's a place that you care for? And if you're paying close attention to it, like what's going on there? Because the scale becomes easier to manage. Like instead of looking out for the next, you know, 30-meter telescope project, there's always something going on, right? Like the struggle is ongoing. Every place is under assault, like especially on Oahu, being threatened by development. Like there are constantly people and forces like at work who are trying to turn nature, Aina, into like some kind of money-making enterprise. And so it's hard because you start to take stands when you realize like, oh, I love this place enough that I want like it to stay as Aina, and there are people who work against it, or interests that are working against it, and like now it's my job to kind of to be a backstop. So I think just paying attention and like collecting information as you see like things going on, like, is a great place to start. And it doesn't even you know, it doesn't mean that you have to act on it as an individual, but just knowing what's going on and seeing it happen, you start to also notice like you're not the only person who's paying attention. There are other people that often show up or who are already there. If you feel like you're new to a place or you're new to an issue, like there are always, you know, a group of concerned aunties who are already paying attention, and you'll find that it's quite easy to hook up with them, and they're so like ready to welcome new help and to welcome more people into the fold. So I think it's connecting with the place first, wherever that is. Like it can be where you live in your backyard. It can be somewhere else that, you know, you think of as you being connected to. And then visiting there, taking care of it. I know it's harder during COVID times. So it might just be trying to find people to talk story about a place that you feel connected to. Is a great place to start. Learn the stories, the mo'olelo about that place, learn the wahipana. And you find that, you know, as your love for that place deepens, your sense of commitment deepens. And then I think more possibilities open for you. Like you start thinking about, you know, gosh, if, you know, the haiku steps are going to open up my neighborhood in ways that I'm not comfortable with. How did that happen? You know, what somebody had to approve that that was going to happen, or if it's going to happen and it's, I'm not following it that closely. But who are the management entities that are going to be in charge? Like, what are they doing, like, to be in communication with the community around them? Or what are like the kind of environmental concerns? Like, or what are the social justice concerns? Like, will this mean that, you know, there are people who are going to be basically unsafe, like in my backyard? Or will this mean that, you know, there's an ecosystem that will be under threat by just tons of people flocking to a place that's not supposed to accommodate, you know, that much foot traffic? So I think you start thinking in a certain way, like as you pay attention to a place, and then you see how, like, you know, it can kind of be applied to other places as you start to shift the way that you think. If you have a lot of time, you know, showing up to meetings is so boring and so necessary at the same time. In part, it's boring because, like, you know, who shows up to these things? Oftentimes it's only the people who have some kind of hand in the pot, right? Like, and they're just trying to move projects along. And so they intentionally make it alienating for everyday people and unexciting. So show up, spice it up, you know, take over the agenda, make it about like what you think should be important. And then all of a sudden, you know, it's interesting for you. It's probably interesting for other people who are like you, who feel turned off by showing up to meetings. Create meetings for yourself. Like we need ways to connect with other people during quarantine times. What better way to connect than finding other people who are aligned, you know, like who want to take care of the same place that you do, or maybe who are learning. Like, hey guys, like I'm in a place where I'm ready to learn more. Let's go study up about, you know, lowland forests, like in, on, you know, on the windward side. Or I think I have a sense that there's some kind of water issue that's sprouting up. Like, you know, if you're folks that pay attention to Hawaiian, like there's stuff going on with the water commission there, and you just get to find out all the kind of nooks and crannies that the water commission takes, like to pass the decisions that it does and to decide like really impactful stuff about the management of water, like across the island. And then, you know, the most concrete way to think about it is that it'll affect all of the Papahana Kuo'ola, Pai o Heia, the nursery in the back, like Kako Uivi. So if you care about any of those places, then you see like, oh, water connects it all. There's a case that's currently going to go before the Water Commission about stream access. Like, there just becomes so many different ways to plug in, like once you start paying close attention to a place that you love. So I would start there. Like I have a feeling that all of you have been to a place where it awakened that feeling, like, oh, I see what the magic is. Like Aina isn't just like a concept, like it's an actual place that I associate, you know, myself with and want to be like connected to, like that.
Anybody have any questions? We're kind of drawing to our close. Any burning desire questions that you just can't let Logan leave without answering? I think what's really, wait, did I pause long enough? I want you to think about what your role is. Sorry, your gift. What is your gift? I mean, we've all kind of said it in our introductions. If you didn't hear your gift in what you said, try re-listen to this video later and listen to what your gift is or what you can give right now to any issues. Yeah. So for example, Vera, she talked about film. Yeah. So everybody's got something that they can bring to the table. Maybe there would be, you do want to go sit on those board meetings or run for OHA or whatever. Everybody's got something they can bring to the table. So what is your KAHEA? What is your call? Sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat, but I just, we'll look at it now.
What's next? Are there any issues that are boiling over?
Ooh, good question, Moke. Are there any issues right now that we should be paying attention to, Logan?
We're we're so committed to this Mauna Kea thing that it's just like endless. There's the lease is coming up. If you know a little bit about the history of Mauna Kea, they're part of this, you know, this collection of lands that were seized by the provisional government that overthrew Lili'u back in 1893, and they're now called, you know, the ceded lands. They were seized, and now they've been considered ceded, and also taken care of by the state. So the state technically is supposed to manage many of these lands. They often lease it, so it's been leased to the university, and then the university in turn will sublease lands that are being managed by the state through the guise of DLNR. See how many layers there are and how many different, you know, administrative bodies you have to keep track of. So the leases are usually kind of renewed without any kind of fanfare, but because people are paying attention to Mauna Kea, the lease is coming to a close, and the university is already in negotiation to renew the lease. There have been some indications from the state that they're not super interested in UH being the one that holds the lease, like once this thing is up for renewal. But that doesn't mean the state's not interested still in telescopes as a kind of industry. So we're paying attention to that. If that sounds interesting in the lease to you, pay attention to the UH Board of Trustees when they have meetings, or Board of Regents they're called. They'll often slip like this item onto the agenda like super last minute. That they have all kinds of boring stuff, like they're gonna give, you know, like I don't know, like sorry if there are any middle managers on the call, but you know, like middle manager of the year. They'll say like this person who's been awarded, you know, like this kind of citation for, and then at the end of it, they're like, okay, now the agenda item is like the Mauna Kea lease. And then there's like 10 minutes left in the thing, and people who like think that the meetings are supposed to be scheduled in a certain way will have, you know, something else to do. And then they'll just go, they'll run through for hours past the meeting, or they'll cut it off and say like, I'm sorry, we don't have any more time and we'll have to schedule this another time. So sorry for all of you that signed up to testify like on this particular issue. We'll reschedule, look out for it like in the next agenda. So pay attention to the board, UH Board of Regents, pay attention to whatever is coming from the state. There may be bills that are introduced around management of Mauna Kea, like during this upcoming session. And again, they're often disguised, like they'll be about some boring other thing, like regarding UH and like its responses to COVID. And then there'll be one section in there that talks about the Mauna Kea lease. So we'll try our best, but sometimes, like I said, these things get slipped in, and it's somebody else who tips us off, who just happened to be trolling the, you know, the ledge that day and has been tracking this bill, having a feeling that it's going to be slipped in there. So if you have the time and the inclination, like we love to have those eyes out there who are looking out for this kind of stuff. And the same thing will apply for if Mauna Kea is not your thing, but you have some other place or issue in mind. Same thing, like try to find whatever like kind of administrative body that is associated with that place or that issue, like the Water Commission for Hawaiʻi, for instance, like pay attention to what's going on with the Water Commission coming up. And you'll kind of be able to see, like, as these things slowly move through, and then you can piece together, like if you watch it for a while, how they lead to really kind of impactful decisions, but they happen piecemeal. So we're paying attention to the Mauna Kea thing. We would love your help, like if you can, to watchdog that, to look out for bills, to look out for like Board of Regents agenda items, like that kind of thing. And then whatever like interests you in your communities, in your backyards. And then if you think that something's, you know, worth blasting out, like you can contact me, you can send something to our Facebook or I think we have an Instagram too that's checked fairly regularly, and let us know, like, I see something, I think this is worth telling other people, and we're going to put you at the center of it. We'll say like such and such person like brought this to our attention, you know, like mahalo to them, and all of a sudden you're the lead. That's kind of how we work. We're all voluntary board. We don't get paid. We have one staff person that basically like makes sure our website is running. That was the other thing, is that we're actually looking to build capacity. So a way that you guys could definitely help, besides watchdogging, you know, stuff that is of concern to you, we have, we're looking for a staff person. We'll probably come out with like an actual application soon, but we're trying to send it out to our networks first to be on the lookout. We're looking for somebody who has the time and like can take a part-time job actually tracking these sort of things as their job, which would be to like look at the ledge session, all of the bills that might be related to not just Mauna Kea, but other things that happen, you know, at the happy space of environmental justice and Hawaiian cultural resources and concerns, and all of these other administrative bodies that like deal, like whether it's DLNR or CWRM, Board of Water, right? Because the Red Hill thing is still not, like, for those of you that follow like the Sierra Club, the Red Hill thing is still ongoing. The military still like hasn't come up with a viable solution. That potentially affects all of Oahu's water table because of the way that our resources are connected. There are just so many things, you know, you can go on and on. In Waianae, the PVP, you know, the issue with the landfill, and it's still not dead. There is always a development project in Makaha. Tiger Woods was the latest one who popped up saying that he wants to build something on the former golf course. I think he wants to build homes and redevelop the golf course in Makaha. And that's going to mean, you know, more tourism, more kind of higher income folks moving to a place and displacing local communities. So it's really just wherever you want to pay attention to, there's always something going on. So yeah, I think I offered kind of varying levels of kind of support. It could be just paying attention to your local thing and sending it our way. It could be looking out for that application, potentially applying yourself, or like sending it along to folks in your networks who you think might want to join on as a staff person to be paid to like pay attention to bills and administrative processes. And then we have an intern position, which will probably support that person. And then as we hopefully transition out of full lockdown, start connecting with community in person and being the person that helps us to set that stuff up. So be on the lookout for those things, send it out to your networks that we're starting to look for people, or if not, apply yourselves. And yeah, I'm happy to be in touch. I'll put my email there too, if you have any other
great,
questions.
Yeah. All right. I think, thank you so much for like opening our eyes to all the things KAHEA does. And it's nice to know that KAHEA is there, kind of standing in the wings ready to pounce on things that just go on and on and on and on and on because of all those layers that you've talked about.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. So I thank you, Logan, for your time. And my doorbell just rang. Anyway, did you hear that? A real doorbell.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you everybody for showing up today. I think we'll bring it to a close. Feel free to email me or Logan, and maybe we can get you guys hooked up to whatever questions you need answered.
Yeah.
I think having discussions like this are so easy to set up. So like-minded people, as Logan said, bring them together, have a talk story. And that's the beauty of a talk story series, or not even a series, just a talk story session.
And even lurking, like it's harder to do, I don't know, on Zoom if you can, but like I used to just go, like when I started paying attention to this stuff and just see how other people engage and get inspired by it, by watching other people and not feeling the pressure to participate until I felt like, you know, comfortable doing that myself.
That's a really good tip. I have done that before too. I lurked, I admit it.
Yeah.
I admit it, I lurked. Yeah. Anyway, thank you everybody. Have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. And thank you, Logan, for your time and energy today.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
Thank you for having me. Aloha.
Aloha.